Hello and welcome to Quilting with Lori. My name is Lori Dickman. Are you looking for a simple but classy block to use this fall, maybe for a table runner or a centerpiece or a wall quilt? I have an idea for you and I think you'll like it. This is my Scrappy Fall Blossoms quilt that I've just put together. It is three-dimensional. You've probably seen these. They're all over out in the internet. They're so easy to make. And I simply am using my 4.5-inch squares from my... By the way, if you do not yet have a scrap stash cut, sorted, organized, and ready to use, such as what I just shared with you here on my tin of 4.5-inch squares, I do have a video out on my YouTube channel. You go to my homepage of my YouTube channel, and I'll have links below. But there is a full video that teaches you my techniques, and this is my Speedy Solutions to Cut and Organize Your Scrap Stash Techniques book. I do have a book set, the techniques, the patterns book. I'll have it all linked below in case you're interested in looking at that. But definitely check out the video that will teach you step by step what you need to do to get your scrap stash cut, sorted, organized, and ready to use to make some beautiful quilts. What I have used is 4 dark 4.5-inch squares and 4 light or gold 4.5-inch squares. So they're all 4.5-inch squares, and they're going to be put together in a very simple way to make this block. So let me show you how it's put together. Now, as I mentioned, you can use any size square. You can use 5-inch charm squares, you can use 3.5-inch squares, you can use 10-inch squares if you choose. I have chosen to use 4.5-inch squares, so I have 4 of the dark and 4 of the lighter, or these gold squares. And I'm going to put them together to create this beautiful scrappy fall blossom. So your dark squares are going to be the background, obviously, and these lighter squares, you are simply going to fold them. And so I would fold every one the same. I'm folding it so that we're folding it so the wrong side is on the inside. So I've folded it diagonally like that. Then I'm going to fold this diagonally just like that. And I'm going to take it to the iron and press, which I've already done. You're going to fold each and every one of these in that same fashion. And make sure that you fold them all in the same direction so that your flower will spin in the same direction. So I've folded each diagonally, and then I've folded each down to the point right there. So there are 3 of them, and here's the last one. Folded it diagonally, folded it down to the point. So we have all 4 of them. Now what we're going to do is take those 4, and we're going to baste the 2 edges of these onto each of the blocks. So I like to set up my machine just to have a longer stitch, and I am going to start stitching from here. You do want to use a leader to get onto this because you're sewing onto a point. If you're not going to use a leader, or that's a little piece of scrap fabric to get onto that point, then you might want to start over here. But you're going to sew 1/8 of an inch away from the edge all the way around to attach this blossom to this corner of the block. And you're going to do that for all of them. They're all going to be sewn identical. Everyone has to be placed on the square the same. They have to be folded the same, and they have to be sewn onto the squares exactly the same. And so you're going to baste those on there, and I'll show you that here in a moment. And once that is done, let me put this one right over here. Hopefully it's still in the screen. Yes, it's still in the screen. You're going to stitch all of those, baste them on 1/8 of an inch away from the seam allowance, and then we're ready to put the block together. So simple. I brought you to the machine, and we are going to start sewing. Here's a little leader. It's just a little scrap of fabric, and I'm going to place it under my needle and start sewing. That is the leader, which will allow me to sew onto this point without having any issues. So now I'm going to simply, and I've changed my stitch length to 3.0, so it's a little bit longer stitch length. And I'm simply basically basting this at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, a very tiny seam allowance. I'm going to get to the corner here and turn and sew here. So that one is done. What I did with my other flower, I just basically moved this one away and that kind of acted as my leader. Let me get this lined up properly. And I'm going to start with this one. And I was able to continue sewing just like that. So there's what I've done, just little 1/8 of an inch seam allowances as I'm basting these flowers onto the background of the petal. The 4 blossoms have been basted onto the backgrounds, and as you can see, they are 3-dimensional. And then they all were sewn like this, and you're simply gonna pinwheel them, basically, is what you're gonna do. And so they've been pinwheeled, if you will, and we're gonna sew these 2 together, we're gonna sew these 2 together, and then we're gonna sew the 2 rows together, and we will have a completed block. Let me go ahead and get that done, and I'll show you what it looks like. So they have been sewn together here, and I'm gonna open them up so you can see them. Here we go. And now we're going to sew the 2 rows together. There is quite a bit of bulk in the seams because you've got that folded over blossom in the center. I simply nested mine like this. You could press it open, but either way, there's quite a bit of seams in there. You could press those open if you choose to, but I nested mine and sewed it from end to end so that the 2 rows were sewn together. And then what I did was I pinwheeled the back, and I'll show you that here in just a moment. First, let me sew this seam. My block is now sewn together, and I like to pinwheel these seams because they are so bulky. There's just a lot of fabric between here, 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 and there. So what I want to do is make sure that all 4 of these seam allowances go in opposite directions. In order to accomplish that, we're going to pinwheel this center, and I'm simply going to clip that thread there that held it together and open it up, and you'll see a little 4 patch there. See that? I just clipped the thread that held it, and then I'm going to press this seam that direction. This seam will come down. This seam will go to the right, and this seam will go up. So the seams are going to be pressed in a reverse or counterclockwise direction, and that will just help everything to lay nicely. And making these little pinwheel sections in the back of your quilt blocks really does help when you are quilting. Here's the finished blocks. They're just adorable, and it is so fun to make these little blocks. Quite an easy block. You could set out the 4.5-inch squares or whatever size you choose to use by your sewing machine, and just maybe do a block or 2 each day, each week, until you have created a beautiful scrappy quilt with them. Or maybe you just prefer to make a table runner. What a beautiful fall table runner this would be, or a fall wall quilt. There's so many ideas that I'm thinking of that I could create with these beautiful little scrappy fall blossom blocks. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed watching how this dimensional fall scrappy block was put together. So easy, quick, and I think you'll have fun creating your own version of a scrappy fall blossoms quilt using this technique. I hope you like the content that I'm providing. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment. I love to read the comments from my viewers. Thank you so much for that. Don't forget to share my videos with other quilters, friends, and guilds that you have. When you do that, it really does help my quilt channel to grow so that it reaches other quilters just like yourself. Thank you so much for doing that. And so until next time, happy quilting.